You're watching CGTV, Community Government Television, Channel 11, Pitkin County, City of Aspen, and Town of Snowmass Village.
The City of Aspen, established in 1881, has over 220 full-time employees, a number that swells to more than 425 with the addition of seasonal and temporary workers. Organized into more than 20 departments, the City of Aspen provides major amenities like parks, a rec center, and open space, and services like utilities and police and Kids First to its residents and visitors. From the golf course to the Community Development Department, the Wheeler Opera House to the Parking Department, the City of Aspen and its employees strive to do the best job possible. A major goal of the city is keeping open communication between the government and the citizens. Welcome to City Matters, a show where the city does matter, and matters of the city are brought to you. Hi, and welcome to City Matters. I'm Mitzi Rapkin, Director of Community Relations for the City of Aspen, and here on the show we talk about all things city, and I am greatly honored today to be joined by Ward Hauenstein, our City Council member. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure being here. Thank you.
Yeah. So this is just a great time to chat and catch up and let the community know some things that are on your mind and issues you care about. So let's start a little bit backwards in time with, 2 years ago you joined the council. What was your impetus for running? I know you've been involved in the community, but what sort of jumped up for you to the level where you wanted to serve?
Well, I think it was time in my life where I had some more time. Empty nester, and had been involved in a number of issues over the years and wanted to be a positive change instead of being reactive, wanted to be proactive, wanted to help forge the future of Aspen. I think there's some really important issues that we're facing now, and I felt that I could offer a voice of balance and reason, and that was what gave me the urge to run.
And did you find when you started, some things were surprising about it, or that the learning curve was bigger than you thought, or was it easier than you thought? What was it like initially?
Well, when you're a citizen not involved in council work, you can pick and choose your issues. When you are on city council, you have to be immersed in all of the issues. On a 1,000-page packet, you have to know it all. If you're a citizen, you can look through it and go, well, nothing this week that really jumps out at me, so I'll just wait until next week. So there is the fact that you can't pick and choose your issues. You have to be conversant in all of the issues. Another thing is the work sessions. I've had been to a number of work sessions over the years, but the realization of really how work sessions work, how ideas are germinated, tasked to staff, how they come back to us as resolutions or first readings, so that really an idea begins with work sessions. And those are very important, and I think there's a lack of appreciation for the importance of work sessions. So that was another issue. And then there's another whole layer that when you are just a citizen, not to say just a citizen, but when you're not on council, you're not involved with 300 or 325 members of city staff. And being on council, you wind up being involved with some of the top level staff. You don't really always interact with the frontline staff, but to forge relationships with staff is really important.
Did you find that once you were on council at all that things were much more complicated than you thought? Like that as a citizen you could say, oh, they should just change that. But then when you learn about rules for procurement or other details that are just law or how things function, did you find that to be more complicated or no?
I think as you get involved with an issue from the beginning, it's kind of like when the grass grows, you don't notice that it's growing, but if you've been there the whole time, you understand all those nuances. And if you look at it from the outside at a point in time when the decision is made, or more often in Aspen after the decision is made, that you go, that was a really stupid decision. Whereas if you've been with the process the whole way, which might be multiple years, that some of the suggestions that are presented to you, you go, well, we tried that, we thought of that, that has been vetted. So there's perhaps a lack of real appreciation for the whole process from the citizenry.
And in the 2 years of your past, were there any issues that you were particularly proud of?
Well, I was really proud of flavored tobacco ban in Aspen. I thought that in Tobacco 21 it's interesting that the meeting that I got sworn in on, that's a split meeting. When the old council voted, they voted Tobacco 21, and that was like the bookmark for my time on council. The last meeting for the 2-year council was voting in tobacco, banning flavored tobacco. So the bookends on those 2 years that I've been on council related to tobacco and public health and safeguarding the health of our youth. And so I'm proud of doing anything that I can to prevent the use of an addictive substance.
And what about maybe the stickiest or most complicated that you've dealt with?
Well, lift one.
Yeah, I knew that answer.
So many moving parts, and the vote was, I think, 26 votes, and there's a real strong element in Aspen of we don't want anything to change, and then there are other aspects of Aspen's future that have to be considered. That the economic sustainability of the town, retaining Aspen as a world-class ski resort, staying current with our lifts and our lodging base. Those all have to be balanced against retaining the community character of Aspen. So there are so many individual aspects of the Lift One project that I think we had 6 public hearings. It was a long process. I was involved in it prior to being on council, seeing Gorsuch House before it was really even announced, and making recommendations to the stakeholders, and then on council, going through that whole process was a really complex. And it's not an easy thing to vote for a huge development like that. And there are going to be aspects of it that I think probably could have been done better, but we don't have a crystal ball. I wish we did, but all we can do is inform ourselves as much as we can and do the best we can, balance the competing needs and wants and values of the citizens of Aspen, the community, and try to look towards the future, make decisions that are 30 and 50-year decisions. So that was, I think, without a doubt, the most complicated and time-consuming, and it's also rewarding because the stakeholders weren't even talking to each other, and the city played a really instrumental part and integral part in getting the parties to talk to each other, to bringing the lift down to Dean Street, to rejuvenating that part of town. So nothing's built. It'll be years before you'll see construction, but on paper it looks promising.
Yeah, I mean, it's so complicated because you're not saying yes or no to just lift 1A, yes, lift 1A, no. It's a package deal, and it comes with trade-offs and balances, and I think a lot of things on council are like that, especially with, with development, but even with tobacco. If you're saying no, you're also thinking about what revenue do you lose, and it's always kind of a mixture of weighing things out.
Yeah, the tobacco was, it wasn't revenue that the city was losing that I was concerned with, but I was concerned with the retailers. Locals Corner and City Market both sold flavored tobacco, and to the credit of the Locals Corner, they had removed flavored vaping products prior to there being any council action on it. But you can't help, if you want to have a holistic view, I don't think you can help but analyze the lost revenue. And I thought perhaps as much about that as any single smaller issue. And that I thought back when the Cuyahoga River was burning and the EPA established guidelines for clean water and clean air, and how at the time it was seen as a governmental overreach. But it was public health, and it's our environment. And I saw much the same with flavored tobacco in Aspen as a public health, not just for the youth, but for adults as well. When only 14% of the people in the country smoke tobacco products, and that's declining. In the public health, 480,000 people a year die from tobacco-related issues. That overweighed the scale on the right to a business to make profit off of something that I think is dangerous.
Yeah. So you just had, you were just a month into a new council, and you just had a council retreat where you talked about how you're going to work together as a group, and then talked about your priorities. Are there things that came out of that, or just in general for you as you look ahead, that are your passions or priorities that you really want to work on?
I think council shares a lot of the same values. How we get there might have to be worked out. For me, it's a matter of time for the new council, all of us to work together to get to know each other. Humor is I try to bring humor to the council table, and sometimes different people have different senses of humor, different ways of expressing themselves, different ways of processing, and getting to know that takes a while. It took me a while, the first council that I was on, and now we have 3 new members, and it'll take a little while to feel comfortable and help anticipate by nonverbal language and communication what somebody's thinking, and what direction to go, and perhaps what we can, where we can compromise, what are issues or what are aspects of an issue that are a non-starter for an individual. So it's all about, I've continually to say this, it's all about balance. You've got to balance everything out.
And are there certain issues for you, related to policy, affordable housing, or the environment, or any of the things, childcare, that came up, or just on your own that maybe weren't on the list of top 10, but that you really care about, that you want to see maybe championed? Well,
I think the top 9 lists we had in the first 2 years, or top 10 lists, I think those are kind of misleading, because if you look at things holistically, they all play into each other. You can't just separate workforce housing and say that doesn't affect childcare, doesn't affect transportation, that it doesn't affect density, the number of kids in school, because they all interact with each other. It's like there's somewhat of a discussion going on. Is it workforce housing? Is it community housing? Well, your community are the people that work here. So they all blend in together. The 3 that you mentioned are really important, I think, to all of us. Childcare. I'm a newly minted grandfather, and I know my daughter and her husband are having difficulties finding nannies in childcare. The expense involved in it, looking at what's available in Aspen, what the projected needs are in the future, what our physical restraints are, what we will need in capital to increase our child care capacity. Those are all important issues, and you balance that against workforce housing. If you have more workforce housing, you're going to create more need for child care. And always a filter for me, or a lens, is the environment. I started a recycling center, recycling in the dorms at the University of Minnesota in 1975. So, and I also was involved in a group in Minnesota called the Minnesota Public Interest Research Group. And back in the 70s, we mapped everything in the Twin Cities that went into the Mississippi River. So the Clean Water Act. And so I've been an environmentalist for a long time. And that is, we only have one Earth, and we have to protect it.
Are there any specific policies around the environment that you are excited to try to tackle, or is it more kind of general?
Well, there are a couple of them, and again, they interact. The energy codes that we have, building codes, for new construction, they're pretty competitive and pretty good, but we have not addressed retrofitting old buildings to make them energy efficient. Aspen is 100%, the core of Aspen is 100% renewable on their electric use. Holy Cross, I think, is at 39% renewable now, and quickly increasing that percentage renewables. But circle back and remind me of the question.
Just the environmental issues that you really want to champion, or that you...
building codes, and energy efficiency. Net zero may or may not be achievable, but net zero emissions, the new City Hall has net zero emissions of carbon, but it won't be net zero because we're not going to have solar generation on the roof. And composting is going to be, has been brought to our attention by our environmental health department, Liz Chapman, that composting is the area where the biggest gain can be made. I was just at the library, I carried a cup up here, I have to wait to find a compost bin. So increased number of compost bins. The stores, City Market has a really good compost program that they take a huge dumpster out once a week. What we can perhaps do is decrease the amount of single-use plastics. Try to encourage City Market, Clark's Market, not to be using single-use plastics to package their lettuce and produce in. Everything not produced decreases the amount of landfill, and also recycling. And recycling is a kind of a interesting issue since China isn't taking our recycling. But it's still better to recycle. It's just not going to be recycling in the black. It's going to cost us to do it.
And this, I don't want to, take you to a realm you don't want to talk about, but one of the things that I'm very interested in, just on the side, I find it fascinating, is the city's water and water storage. And I know that you worked, on a council that dealt with some of our water storage issues. I'm just wondering if you have any interest in that.
Absolutely. That was a big impetus. When I was running, I wanted that no dams could be built up Castle and Maroon without a vote of the public. And as it was, they could have been built. Our water storage rights were for 8,800 acre feet of water or above that actually, in Maroon and Castle. And I don't think anybody really wanted to build dams, but our water storage is minuscule. I think Steamboat Springs has water storage for a little over a year. Eagle Vale area has water storage for over a year. Even Snowmass Village, I think, has water storage for about 23 days. And Aspen has water storage for about 9 hours.
Yeah.
So the need for, all of our water comes from, potable water comes from Maroon or Castle Creeks. And if there's an avalanche, which there was this March, and both of those were compromised, that it could get to a point where the water storage we have is inadequate to keep the water the faucets flowing and the toilets flushing. So I've been on council. We purchased land in Woody Creek for the possible moving of water storage rights from Maroon and Castle to Woody Creek to construct water storage there. And that opens up a whole new thing of, well, if we need water storage, we'll have to pump it from Woody Creek up to the water purification plant. But there's really no other place to store the water. All the water that is diverted to the Front Range, water in Colorado is a huge issue. Coming from Minnesota, where there are 15,000 lakes, water was never an issue. But the levels of complexity of water rights and calls in Colorado are just mind-boggling.
Yeah. It's just, I think it's such a fascinating issue because we all, turn on our faucet, and in the case of an avalanche, 12 hours later, you turn on your faucet, there's nothing there. And so that kind of pre-planning, and I would think as a council member, some of that is really hard because people really care about what they see right now, and kind of selling a problem way before it really happens, I think is much more complicated. And I'm wondering if you've had any experience or insight into that in your years on council. Have you found that to be true, or?
I think public gets engaged too late in the process. Oftentimes, and I've been guilty of this, after a decision's been made, you go, well, I just can't understand how they would come up with that decision. And so I fought Base 2 in the Hydro Castle Creek Energy Center. The Castle Creek was more the process that they used in obfuscating the legal process. But we see it almost every council that somebody comes and talks about city offices. A decision that was made in 2017 before I was even on council, and it was started in 2014 with public meetings, and it started off at 60,000 square feet, and it's now being built at about 37,000 square feet. After the decision's made, after a vote has been cast, and the Rio Grande place was chosen for city offices, now people are saying, well, we never knew about this. We want to lop off the top floor. And that decision was made. And council listened to, I've gone back and listened, and I watched them at the time, but a couple of times I've gone back and looked at what council told the design team. And the design team actually came back within a week, and they made changes. And there were, I think, at least 3 public hearings on the city offices. And when it passed, it gained the support of council. And I respected that when I came onto council. I respected the decisions that the previous council had made. I did not try to undo it. And this council is not trying to undo the decisions that were made in 2017 or the public vote that was that approved the Rio Grande place.
I know that part of being on council is also serving on other committees like RAFTA or something on the state. I think you're on the Sister Cities Committee. Is there anything else that you kind of do outreach for?
CCLC, Central Core Lodging Commission, recently appointed to RAFTA and Core. I will be going to Houston in a couple of weeks for the International Conference for Sister Cities. Aspen received an award for cities under 10,000. So Griff Smith wrote that. He will be accepting the award at a dinner in Houston. So that's a feather in the cap of Aspen. My involvement in those issues is rewarding as well.
Yeah, RAFTA's that's a big one. When I was a reporter, I used to cover RAFTA, so I sat through a lot of those meetings, and it's so fascinating because I think they're one of a few organizations that really serve the whole entire valley, and I think they do a really good job. Have you been to any meetings yet?
Just the retreat.
Yeah.
And I've had travel plans where I'll miss the meeting tomorrow. be going to Maine for family matters. And I think I will miss one in August where travel plans are made already. But RAFTA, the model of RAFTA, the governance is really good because it is, like you say, it's a regional. And it's something that we could model housing authority after. The area housing survey that was completed a couple of months ago, and their increased voice for a regional housing approach, and housing and transportation are they're joined at the hip. You know, the bus rapid transit moves a lot of people. But traffic into Aspen is generated by people living down valley and working in Aspen. Last night, Basalt Town Council approved a housing project for the ski company. It's an ideal, I think, situation because it's a block from the bus line. The more we can cut down on the number of cars that come into town, the better. And RAFTA does that on a regional basis. But circling back, the idea that we have regional problems and that perhaps we need better communications between the regional governmental entities, better communication with the Board of County Commissioners and City Council. There's an EOTC, which is elected officials transportation, that's Snowmass Village, Aspen, and the Board of County Commissioners, but that's Upper Valley. So, and RAFTA really covers the whole valley and up and down the corridor, I-70 corridor as well. So RAFTA is really a model that we can use for housing and other issues as well.
So all of these things we were talking about are they're heavy stuff, you know, childcare, housing. Has there been anything that you've found on council, not that this isn't fun, but that was just fun, that you really enjoy?
Well, my humor, I think, is pretty amazing.
We need it. I mean, we definitely need it.
It's serious work.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can't go into it. If you make light of something, then you're almost insulting somebody. It was interesting and fun to have Nelson Mandela's grandson in Monday night. And it's great when the kids from Kids First come in. Those are fun things. And when we have Black Diamond Awards for outstanding work that staff has done, those are cause of celebration. So those are things that add some levity to it.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you so much. Anyone in the public can reach you. We have a city council page on cityofaspen.com. You can be reached by email or phone. Is there any other parting words you'd like to say?
Yeah, I want to hear from you. The more input that I have, go ahead and criticize me, because I can learn from criticism. 948-3858, ward.hauenstein@cityofaspen.com. I'm all ears.
All right.
Thank you, Mitzi.
Great. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and thank you so much for watching.
You're watching CGTV, Community Government Television, Channel 11, Pitkin County, City of Aspen, and Town of Snowmass Village.
The City of Aspen, established in 1881, has over 220 full-time employees, a number that swells to more than 425 with the addition of seasonal and temporary workers. Organized into more than 20 departments, the City of Aspen provides major amenities like parks, a rec center, and open space, and services like utilities and police and Kids First to its residents and visitors. From the golf course to the Community Development Department, the Wheeler Opera House to the Parking Department, the City of Aspen and its employees strive to do the best job possible. A major goal of the city is keeping open communication between the government and the citizens. Welcome to City Matters, a show where the city does matter, and matters of the city are brought to you.